try to fight the recoil, you will lose with this gun.
When I saw this gun, I was fascinated.
This would have been a gun designed specifically to drop an elephant with one shot. With this, you're about 10 times the force of a heavy 12 gauge every time you pull the trigger.
Restoration Passion is doing guns. So welcome to one of our very first episodes of The Guns. This is going to be part of a new segment where we'll begin to dive into the realm of guns, but we'll still continue to bring you footage from all our tanks and restorations. Today I'm bringing you the very first gun episode of Restoration Passion, and this is one cool gun, and it makes sense for us because we focus on large big bore weapons, and this thing is literally a shoulder-fired artillery piece. So what I have here is called a 4-bore, and this gun, looking at it, the design of it, it literally resembles a small artillery breech block with extractors weapon, and we're going to take you guys out and fire this thing, but be warned, it's a good gun to start with. To talk about this gun, I'm going to hand you over to one of our very special friends at Restoration Passion and at Battlefield. I'm bringing you Robert Danger Bob Bugando. He's helped us get a lot of our big guns firing. So I'm going to leave you with Bob, and he's going to talk about some more specifics of the gun.
So what we have here is a 4-bore rifle. And how you describe bore in a gun, everyone's familiar with the 12 gauge or 12 bore. And 10 gauge, 20 gauge, so on. And a 12 gauge, and how you establish a 12 gauge, is if you have the bore of a 12 gauge is actually 729, and if you were to get 12 729 round balls, you would have 1 pound. With a 20 gauge, if you were to have 20 gauge round balls the size of the bore, you would have 1 pound. 10 gauge would be 10 round balls, would equal 1 pound. So with the 4-bore, it is 4 round balls equal 1 pound. So you're firing the equivalent of a 1/4 pounder every time you pull the trigger. Originally, these guns, and why they're so big, is they were made before black powder was available, or before smokeless powder was available for shooting elephants, because you didn't have the velocity to penetrate the elephant, so your guns became bigger and bigger and bigger to where you could drop an elephant with 1 shot using black powder. And the kind of the king of all of that was the 4-bore. It was about as big as you could possibly get. So this gun really came to fruition in pre-1890s Africa, hunting big game, elephants specifically. So this would have been a gun designed specifically to drop an elephant with 1 shot. However, with the smokeless powder, when it came about, we started to see more velocities, and our projectile weight and bullet size came down drastically. This gun was made for one of the well-known This gun was made for John Ross, and for those that don't know, John Ross was the writer of the book Unintended Consequences, which is kind of a cult classic in the machine gun big bore world. John recently passed away a couple weeks ago, so it's kind of neat that we're able to bring out a gun that he had made and was his gun. When he had this gun built, he didn't like the idea of shooting black powder, because black powder, number one, you can only get certain velocities using black powder, and number two, black powder is very dirty. So he had this gun specifically built using modern technology to shoot smokeless powders. So in sense, this would be a 4-bore nitro, where you can get real velocities out of one hell of a cannon. So this one, we're using all smokeless powders. The gun weighs in right at 23 pounds. We're firing a projectile that weighs just under 1,800 grains at a velocity of maxed out about 2,200 feet per second. So a gun of this weight, 23 pounds, firing that projectile, we have about 300 pounds of recoil force into your shoulder every time you squeeze the trigger. Everyone's familiar with a 12 gauge shotgun, and shooting a target load out of a average 12 gauge is about 18 pounds of recoil force. Shooting a heavy load out of a 12 gauge is probably closer to 30 pounds of recoil force. So with this, you're about 10 times the force of a heavy 12 gauge every time you pull the trigger. The energy of this bullet at 2,200 feet per second is right at about just under 20,000 foot-pounds of energy going downrange.
So now we'll go through mechanical function of the gun. And when I saw this gun, I was fascinated. I loved it because, again, the functionality of it literally derived from a small artillery piece like a US-37 with a drop breech block. I don't think I've ever seen a shoulder-mounted firearm that functions like a baby artillery piece. It features a breech block with a set of extractors. So to load around like a normal lever action, I'm doing this with my offhand, but you can see inside there, just like our big bore stuff, a set of extractors. So a cartridge goes in, trips the extractors just like a tank or artillery, and then you pull the breech block up. Thank you, Ruger. The dogs always need to be part of the action. Okay, so mechanical function, it's very simple, and it's very a very rugged design, but also very smooth. Everything in here feels real tight, nothing feels very loose. But again, the function of it is the lever pulls down on a gear here and drops the breech block. Other than that function, you just have your trigger and a basic shotgun safety. So on the left here, we have what would be considered very close to an original round. And at some point, this was comparable to a 20mm Vulcan round, and they just modified the case to fit an original projectile. But as with everything in restoration, a lot of you out there know that finding out-of-the-box brand new stuff for a gun that's nearly 100 years old in design is very difficult to find. So we have to manufacture and machine new parts. And here, as part of Bob's collection, they've ingeniously made a modern remake of the original round. So the machinist that did this, I give full credit to, because he's made a steel cup, and the point of the steel cup being that steel is harder than brass, it gives you a nice firm surface for the extractors to pull out on, so the extractors won't wear the steel like it does on the brass. Machined it for a small rifle primer. The best part is that the case has a shoulder down in there, so your projectile sits in on that shoulder, and then because of the pure velocity behind this round, he's actually thickened out the brass walls. So you have a nice solid thick case. So it's my opinion that this case will be durable and last for quite some time.
I've always been a big bore aficionado as far as cannons, large bore rifles, and the 4-bore is always the kind of the king of them. It was the biggest commercially produced gun, and I've hunted several of them for years. And it's always a combination of being at the right place at the right time with the right amount of money. Because you could find these things, you may see them at a show here or a show there, and it may not be the right gun for you or the right time to buy it. And one I chased for several years, and I think I missed a deal happening by weeks, and was really disappointed. And I've known about this gun. It belonged to, after John Ross sold it, he sold it to another large bore shooter that had it for years, and he had passed away as well. And I knew that the collection was slowly being sold. I knew the person that was selling the collection, and I would bug him about it fairly routinely. And recently he finally was able to dig it up, bring it to me, and we agreed on a what I felt was a reasonable price for this thing, and I was able to bring it home, and now it's one of the ones that will sit in my collection probably until I die. And so right here, you know, is the largest commercially produced rifle ever made. First time shooting it off the shoulder, I actually decided to download it about 70% of what I was originally told. And the first shot was actually very, I'm not gonna say mild. It was enough to where it kicked the snot out of me, but I quickly knew that I would have no problem loading this thing up to about as close to its maximum capacity. And when you do shoot it, depending on how you hold it, if you try to fight the recoil, you will lose with this gun. If you kind of go with it, it is a mighty kick, and you probably can shoot it. I know the first time I shot it, I brought it out and put 5 or 6 rounds down range the very first day, and I was done. A lot of people can probably fire it one time, and if they don't drop it, no one has dropped it yet, but some people have come pretty close to dropping it. It is a handful, and for most people, it's a one and done type of situation. So we're going to a small private shoot this weekend. We're going to bring out the 4-bore. I also have another John Ross gun that I'm going to bring out. So it's kind of fitting that he had passed away again a couple weeks ago. So it makes it kind of bittersweet to bring out one of his guns and really put it through the paces and bring a lot of people that enjoy shooting these big guns, give them the opportunity to put a few rounds down range on a really special gun.
Yeah, it's not the sharp push like the 600.
No.
It's manageable.
Yeah.
Don't bring shame to the family, James. Give your muscle. All right, start filming. Well, it knocked my glasses off. Okay, here we go.
So you want it in your muscle, not in your arm. You want to put it here, not here.
Yeah.
All right.
Basically.
Damn. Shit.
Yeah.
Gotta get me one of them.
A little high.